In my previous life, I married into the Rongwa Duke's household, managed the household affairs, and gained widespread fame for my virtue. Ultimately, I was buried with honors befitting a noble title, with a prince escorting my coffin. Everyone said my life was both illustrious and legendary. But, in this life, when my father asked about my personal marital intentions, I answered without hesitation, the only son of the Yongle Marquis, Wu Yi. Father pondered for a long time, in the dead of night. The Jing'an study was eerily quiet, and the serving maids had been sent away early. For miles around, only my father and I remained. Have you thought it through? The glory and wealth of the Duke of Rong's estate far surpass that of the Marquis of Yongle's. Are you truly willing to give it up? I slowly rose from my seat and knelt down. Father, your daughter does not seek great wealth and honor in this life, only a stable and peaceful existence. The Rongwagong mansion is at the height of its power and influence, and young Master Rong is especially beloved by everyone. My daughter is worried that she is not worthy of such good fortune. Father stood up and paced back and forth in the room. After a long while, he sat back down in his chair, took a sip of the already cold tea, and said leisurely, Ying has grown up, with her own thoughts. As a father, I am very gratified. I looked up at my father, who was facing away from me. You all have reached the age to consider marriage. The Marquis of Yongle and the Duke of Rongwa have both inquired privately about your marriage. Although our families are long-time friends, no matter which family you are promised to, it will inevitably offend the other. Father turned around, and I quickly bowed my head in supplication. My daughter has no grand ambitions. She only wishes to find one true heart in this life, to grow old together without parting. The father waved his hand. Enough. We can't worry about the affairs of your generation. I'll go to the Marquis of Yongle to discuss this matter tomorrow. My daughter deeply thanks father. As I walked out of the Jing'an study, a full moon hung in the clear sky, and all my anxiety dissipated at this moment. Finally, I no longer have to marry Rong Jiao. This life's Rong Jiao, just like the previous one, is majestic and powerful, always accompanied by a dozen attendants and surrounded by a dozen so-called friends, making him hard to miss. The streets of Jinling are wide, and there are many shops along the roadside. I had intended to avoid him, but unexpectedly, he walked towards me. Li Shuiying, you actually have the time to wander around aimlessly. Didn't you say you were about to marry into my family? I looked at the familiar face in front of me, the man who had obsessed me for a lifetime in my previous life, and now, it felt glaring. Young master, is there some misunderstanding between us? Misunderstanding, isn't it that you've wanted to marry into our family since you were a child? As he spoke, he moved closer to me, his gaze sharp, and I instinctively stepped back. Originally, both families wanted to arrange a betrothal for us, but if it weren't for my crying and protesting, you would have already become the daughter-in-law of the Duke of Rongwa's estate by now. His friends whispered behind his back. You were young but already knew how to plan for yourself. I explained with a slightly anxious tone, Young Duke, you've really misunderstood. I don't want to marry you. My defense was weak and drowned out by the vendor's cries and the chatter of his friends. He impatiently glanced at me. Whether it's a misunderstanding or not, we'll find out later. I helplessly looked into the distance. In the distance, Lin Xiao was walking gracefully towards us. Brother Rong Jiao, who are you talking to? Rong Jiao turned around and smiled at Lin Xiao. Oh, it's Sister Shuiying. After we exchanged greetings, Lin Xiao was pulled away by Rong Jiao. I've booked a table at Zuixiong Tower. There's a play you like today, so let's hurry. Lin Xiao turned back to look at me, her expression a mix of a smile and not, with a hint of disdain and satisfaction. Complex and hard to read. At first, I felt empty inside, unable to understand how two people who used to be so close had become like this, ever since we were young. Whenever there was something delicious or something fun, Rong Jiao always thought of me first, whether it was the bitter cold or the scorching heat. No matter how far apart we were, he would go to great lengths to personally deliver it to me. All the children I played with envied me, for I had a brother Rong Jiao who truly cared for me. One bitterly cold winter day, he brought me a roasted lamb leg from home, keeping it warm with his own body heat all the way in the sedan chair, and urged the coachman to hurry, fearing the lamb leg would get cold and lose its flavor. It was then that both families felt Rong Jiao showed great care and protection towards me, and they wanted to arrange a marriage between us. To everyone's surprise, Rong Jiao adamantly refused. I and both sets of elders couldn't understand why he was so resistant. It wasn't until my previous life, when I married Rong Jiao, that he got drunk, crying and shouting the name of his cousin Lin Xiao. Even more so after learning that Lin Xiao was betrothed to Wu Yi, he became melancholic, lingering day and night among the concubines in the back courtyard. Only then did I realize that his heart harbored two affections. Therefore, in this life, I have severed ties with you. As soon as I returned to the residence, the steward informed me that father was looking for me. I quickly made my way to the Jing'an study, where father had already had tea and snacks prepared. At the moment, he was sipping tea and gazing thoughtfully out the window. Father, did you call for me? Ying is here. Sit down, have some tea first to calm yourself. I picked up the teacup and took a small sip. I've heard about what happened on the street. It seems that young Master Rong is not a suitable match. His words and actions lack proper restraint. At my father's words, my eyes slightly reddened. This morning I went to the Yongle Marquis's residence. Your marriage to Wu Yi has been arranged. But we still need to find someone to calculate the date. However, it's not appropriate to publicize it now to avoid any complications. I understand, father. I nodded at my father to reassure him. There's one more thing. Today, the Duke of Rong mentioned something to me. Duke Rong? I felt puzzled. Yes. Duke Rong mentioned that young Master Rong is preparing to take his cousin, Lin Xiao, as a concubine. However, since Lin Xiao's parents passed away early and she has been living in Duke Rong's residence, he hopes that I can adopt her as my daughter and have her marry from our Ministry of Revenue residence. How could this be? In my previous life, she had clearly married Wu Yi. Before I could think further, my father continued, I've considered this, and we must agree, when you marry into the Yongle Marquisate in the future, it might cause dissatisfaction from Duke Rong. If I agree to this today, it might at least reduce his resentment towards our Ministry of Revenue. Father, you've thought it through thoroughly. In this life, Lin Xiao has become my foster sister, and Rong Jiao finally got his wish. But why did he take her as a concubine? Soon came the day of Lin Xiao's wedding. The mansion was adorned with lanterns and decorations, bustling with excitement. When the auspicious time arrived, Rong Jiao led a grand procession of several dozen people to the front of the minister's residence. The Duke of Rong initially didn't want him to come in person, but unable to dissuade him, he allowed this grand spectacle. Neighbors and elderly folks with children from the streets all came to watch the commotion. To an outsider, it might seem like he's here to fetch the main wife. Isn't that right? Look at this grandeur. It seems this girl is going to enjoy a life of luxury after the marriage. Passers-by offered their congratulations, and Rong Jiao, on horseback, clasped his fists in salute to the crowd. Red dates, peanuts, and candied fruits were scattered along the way. Lin Xiao listened to the maid's report, her blush appearing particularly rosy. Rong Jiao held Lin Xiao's hand, and I was momentarily dazed. When I looked up, I met Rong Jiao's triumphant gaze. I smiled and slowly shifted my gaze away from him, preparing to return to my room. As I reached the corner of the corridor, he blocked my path. Young Master Rong, why are you here? Li Shuyin, you really are a good sister. I looked at him with full confusion. After all, Xiao is your adopted sister. She's getting married. Yet she doesn't even have a decent gold hairpin. Father had clearly prepared the same dowry for her as he did for me. including the phoenix-adorned gold hairpins for each of us. Yet she chose not to wear hers. Father prepared it for her. But if she doesn't wear it, what can I do? You seem so concerned about her. Why didn't you get her one made earlier to wear? Rong Zhao was left speechless by my retort, her face growing even more sullen. It's because she's afraid that once the attention fades, it will provoke your jealousy. After all, you are destined to be the mistress of the Duke of Rong's estate. And she dare not offend you. Whatever you say goes. I had no intention of arguing with him, as there were still many relatives and guests present. After saying that, I stepped aside and walked past him, faintly hearing him say, "In this life, I have finally married her, and there is no longer any regret." I looked at him in disbelief. Rong Zhao had also been reborn. Until Lin Xiao grabbed Rong Zhao's arm, I finally snapped back to reality. Husband, we should return to the Duke's mansion. Sister, don't blame husband. He only got angry with you because he loves me so much. With that, the two happily returned to the Duke's mansion. I, Rong Zhao, and Wu Yi grew up together since childhood due to our family's long-standing friendship. However, Rong Zhao and Wu Yi had vastly different personalities. Rong Zhao was lively and playful, while Wu Yi was steady and reserved. In my previous life, Wu Yi married Lin Xiao and spent his days buried in books. But he repeatedly failed in the imperial examinations, eventually losing hope and dying with resentment. The last time I saw him was in the suburbs on a fine day. When he saw me, he was overjoyed, Ying, if there's a next life, I will definitely marry you before Rong Zhao. Not long after, his death was announced, and Lin Xiao also went from being a lonely wife to an eternal widow. Therefore, every time she meets me, she always casts venomous glances at me, just because I married Rong Zhao. And everyone thinks I live well. This time, Rong Zhao hastily married Lin Xiao first, and the gears of fate are turning in ways unknown. My father told me that my wedding date with Wu Yi was set for October, which is next month. With time being tight, I began preparing for the wedding. Thinking that Wu Yi would be taking the imperial examination later, I casually embroidered a belt for him. Unexpectedly, the maidservant took the freshly embroidered belt to wash and dry it. Where it was spotted by Rong Zhao, who was accompanying Lin Xiao on her return visit, he snatched it, believing it was embroidered for him. I was furious. Learning of their hunting expedition in the suburbs, I hurried to retrieve my belt. Seeing my anger, the servant rushed ahead to inform Rong Zhao. Upon seeing me, Rong Zhao set down his longbow. How did you get here? Beside him, Lin Xiao was holding a rabbit. Where's my belt? Rong Zhao smiled at me, so eager to embroider a belt for me. I naturally accept it with a smile. My anger grew even more. Who said this was embroidered for you? Give it back. Rong Zhao showed displeasure and said sternly, it's lost. You. I pointed at Rong Zhao, but he had an indifferent attitude. Sister, your belt is right here. Lin Xiao pointed to the black cloth strips wrapped around the rabbit. You all. I was so angry that I couldn't speak coherently. This rabbit was just injured by my husband's arrow, and it's still bleeding. Seeing me upset, my husband used this belt to bandage the rabbit's wound. What a devoted couple, the husband and his beloved concubine. My eyes reddened, and filled with the grievances of my past life and the resentment of this one. I pounded Rong Zhao with my bare hands. Why? Why did you take my things so casually? Why did you treat them so poorly? Why are you treating me like this? Rong Zhao had never seen me in such a state, and for a moment, he was at a loss for words. After a long while, he finally spoke. It's just a belt, Li Shuiying. Is it really necessary? It is, I shouted at him. He stared at me, as if I were not the Li Shuiying he had known since childhood. Isn't this supposed to be embroidered for me? I laughed through my tears. Our childhood bond ends here. With that, I wiped away the tears sliding down my face and returned to the mansion. Lin Xiao held the rabbit and pretended to chase after me a few steps. Sister, don't be angry with my husband. I'll have him compensate you with another one. Rong Jiao remained expressionless, not uttering a word. After returning to the mansion, I locked myself in my room, and tears poured out like a flood, no longer able to be restrained. Recalling the past, the current Rong Jiao is terrifyingly unfamiliar. The childhood sweetheart who valued me more than himself has vanished without a trace. A few days later was my father's 60th birthday. And I was just thinking about preparing a gift for him when I was informed that my father was looking for me. Inside the Jing'an studio, the scent of agarwood lingered faintly, and my father sat quietly to the side. "Father, Ying has arrived. Sit down." Father's face was wreathed in smiles. And he seemed to be in a good mood. "In a few days, it will be my 60th birthday. The Duke of Rong and the Marquis of Yongle will both bring their families to the mansion. By then, Princess Pingning might also arrive." Princess Pingning, yes. There are rumors that the Emperor is about to arrange a marriage between her and the young Duke of Rong's mansion. If that's the case, the Duke of Rong won't hold a grudge against our Ministry of Revenue for you marrying into the Marquis of Yongle's family. Indeed, everything had changed in this life. Although Rong Jiao had been reborn, he never expected that the person he was to marry in this life would be Princess Pingning. I began to look forward to the birthday banquet with a different anticipation. On the day of the banquet, Rong Jiao accompanied Lin Xiao to the residence early. "Congratulations on your 60th birthday. Father-in-law, may your longevity and blessings reach the heavens." Father stroked his beard, beaming with joy. Rong Jiao presented his gifts, a string of South Sea coral beads, along with jadeite, agate, and other precious stones, showcasing his status as a young marquis. Among these, there is a pair of Nanjiao jade, which I specially requested from my mother. They are perfect for a lady to wear. After speaking, he glanced at me, and Lin Xiao beside him looked like she wanted to devour me. I pretended not to understand, but my father saw through it. All right, my good son-in-law, you've put in a lot of thought. We must have a good drink together at the banquet later." Rong Jiao came close to me, satisfied, and whispered, "Are you happy now? This jade bracelet is one of a kind in all of Jinling." "Thank you, young master, but even the finest jade is not suitable for me." I bowed to my father and took my leave. Rong Jiao followed me and grabbed my hand. "Have you had enough of a tantrum? A belt for a pair of jade bracelets, isn't that enough to appease you? If it weren't for the fact that you are to be the future mistress of the Rongwa mansion, I wouldn't bother placating you at all." I couldn't help but smile wryly. He was still completely in the dark. "Every time it's you who insists on marrying me. If you're going to be so jealous after you marry into the Duke's mansion, people will gossip about us. Have you said enough? Please move aside." I pushed him away forcefully, then went back to my room to rest and touch up my makeup. Waiting for the evening banquet, the night fell, and the lights were dim, with guests coming and going like clouds. Everyone had taken their seats, and my father raised his glass to thank the guests for attending his 60th birthday celebration. The atmosphere was lively amidst the clinking of glasses. I secretly drank a bit of wine, feeling slightly tipsy, and wandered alone to the back garden for a stroll. Unexpectedly, I stumbled and almost fell into the water, but suddenly, a strong hand caught my waist and lifted me up, preventing me from becoming a drowned dog. I rubbed my eyes to better see the robust man in front of me. His features were well-defined, with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, exuding an aura of nobility. It was him, Wu Yi. I looked at him, and he looked at me. We stared at each other for a long time, as if we could hear each other's heartbeats, until he remembered to put me down. "Thank you, Yi Gij. As long as Shuiying is safe." When we were children, Wu Yi was the oldest among the three of us, so both Rong Jiao and I called him Yi Gij. He remained as steady and composed as ever. "Why aren't you in the front hall?" "I was just coming out for some fresh air when I noticed you seemed to have had a drink. I was a bit concerned, so I followed you." The subtle smile unconsciously crept onto my lips. "Oh, I see. By the way, Do you have any objections to our marriage? Did you agree to this marriage out of fear of causing trouble for the elders? I gently shook my head, softly looking at him. No, it was my own choice. Hearing me say these words, Wu Yi's face lit up with joy. The night was deep, and the moonlight was gradually spreading. I will not fail you. His eyes were firm and sincere. I nodded and smiled. The air filled with a sweet fragrance, until my personal maid Sueyu called out to me, Miss, Princess Pingning has arrived. The master has asked everyone to gather in the front hall to greet her. Her Highness the Princess has arrived. The eunuch's voice rang out, and everyone in the front hall knelt down in unison. Rise. The crowd stood up again. On the occasion of Minister Li's 60th birthday, His Majesty the Emperor has sent me to offer my congratulations. Behind her, the palace maids and eunuchs placed the gifts they were carrying one by one. I humbly thank your Majesty for your grace. The father knelt down to pay his respects, and the princess stepped forward to help him up. Your Highness, please come inside. After the princess was seated, a eunuch beside her publicly read out a decree that the emperor had sent along with her. By the grace of heaven, the emperor decrees, Rong Jiao, son of the Duke of Rong, is of noble character. Possessing both the grace of a phoenix and the majesty of a dragon, he is wise, courageous, and of high standing. Therefore, he is hereby granted the hand of Princess Pingning in marriage, to be completed within 3 days. This is the decree. Those who had knelt down got up one by one, except for Rong Jiao. Everyone thought he was struck dumb by the sudden imperial favor. Frozen in place, Rong Guogong still gave Lin Xiao a meaningful look, and reluctantly, Lin Xiao nudged Rong Jiao, urging him to quickly express his gratitude to the emperor. Father and Marquis Yongle exchanged glances and immediately offered their advice to the princess. Congratulations, Your Highness, and congratulations to the Duke of Rong. Today is indeed a wonderful day, and I have some joyous news to share as well. Oh, please speak, Minister Li. I, Li Shuyin, will soon marry Wu Yi, the son of the Marquis of Yongle. Congratulations to Minister Li. Congratulations to Marquis Yongle. The guests in the hall congratulated Father, Marquis Yongle, and Duke Rongguo one after another. There are so many joyous events today. Rong Jiao was struck as if by lightning, his face pale, his body trembling, his gaze vacant, and he collapsed completely. After a long while, she finally came to her senses, looking around the hall, and eventually her gaze fell on me. But this gaze was filled with anger, surprise, and disappointment, as the musicians played cheerful notes. The dancers pushed the atmosphere to another peak. At the end of the corridor, the night was dark. Rong Jiao grabbed my arm again and pinned me to the corner of the wall. Rong Jiao, what are you doing? Let me go. Rong Jiao's eyes blazed with fury. It wasn't like this in my previous life. Li Shuiying, you were my wife in the last life, and you will be my wife in this one as well. My forehead was throbbing with pain. Rong Jiao, let me go first. You're hurting me. Rong Jiao regained a bit of his sanity. How could this happen? Did you plan this all along? Rong Jiao, do you need me to repeat the contents of the imperial decree for you again? You are now the princess's husband. Please conduct yourself with dignity. I coldly stared at him, while he, like a provoked beast, glared back. It must have been you, plotting with your father in advance, isn't that right? That's why you dared to publicly announce your marriage to Wu Yi today. With that, he glared at me viciously. I shifted my gaze elsewhere, and he swung his fist, angrily pounding the wall, causing the plaster to crumble and fall. I closed my eyes tightly in fright. Li Shuiying, you dare to play me. I steadied myself and slowly said, Rong Jiao, you've already married your sweetheart. Now, what does my marriage have to do with you? If I had known you were going to marry someone else, I would have married Xiao as my wife, and she wouldn't have had to suffer the indignity of being a concubine. I gave a cold smile but said nothing. As expected, it was all for her that he came to settle accounts with me. From a distance, I saw a tall figure approaching us. Shuiying, is that you? Rong Zhao heard the voice and let me go. Wu Yi, what are you doing here? Rong Zhao asked provocatively. Congratulations, son-in-law. The princess is looking for you. Shuiying. Father is calling us to discuss the wedding arrangements. Son-in-law, I bid you farewell. With that, she took my hand and led me toward the Jing'an study, leaving Rong Zhao frozen in place. Hearing that the princess is strong-willed, Lin Xiao has suffered several setbacks under her, so she no longer causes trouble. However, Rong Zhao, who had once been immensely favored, became even more arrogant. One day, my father asked me to go to the market to buy some luxurious clothes and select a few favorite pieces of jewelry for the wedding day. Coincidentally, I ran into Rong Zhao accompanying Princess Pingning on a shopping trip, and I paid my respects to them. Princess. The princess had a decent impression of me and nodded in my direction. Rong Zhao carried an air of superiority, and upon seeing the clothes and jewelry in the hands of the maid behind me, he teased, Miss Li. Preparing your dowry all by yourself. Where's your Yi Gij? Lin Xiao behind him also spoke with ill intent. Sister, why are you preparing your dowry alone? Why didn't you call me along? After all, I'm a veteran in this matter. I smiled. Sister, you're thoughtful. But the dowry of a principal wife should be different from that of a concubine. The princess glanced at the maid beside her. Smack. The sound of the slap echoed through the entire street. The princess's eyes held a deep meaning. When did it become your place, a lowly concubine, to speak? Lin Xiao covered her swollen face, not daring to utter another word. Rong Zhao beside her was already used to it. I thought Wu Yi had deep feelings for you, but it seems it's nothing special. He mocked me arrogantly while steadying Princess Pingning's waist, exchanging a smile with her. Now, he was determined to embarrass me. I was about to step forward to bid farewell and pay my respects to the princess when suddenly, a familiar figure appeared. Wu Yi approached me, bowed to the princess, and then looked me up and down. Miss Li, your makeup and hair today are impeccable. Adding this would enhance your elegance even more. He took out a golden phoenix hairpin and inserted it into my bun. This is what I just made under the guidance of the master from Lao Fengxiong. Please don't hate it. I touched the golden phoenix hairpin on my head, blushing with a smile, the corners of my mouth slightly raised. Thank you, Yi Gij. The servant behind him took the clothes from the maid behind me, preparing to escort me back to the mansion. We bowed and took our leave to the princess and her husband. Rong Zhao frowned deeply, gritting his teeth, but out of respect for the princess, he had to suppress his anger. Yi Gij, why are you here? I just finished this golden hairpin and was about to send it to your residence when I happened to meet you on the way. Do you like this hairpin? I nodded, my cheeks flushing. That's good. Will you wear it on our wedding day? Yes, I will. We smiled at each other. By the way, I need to close myself off for intense studying these few days to prepare for the palace exam in 5 days. Wait for me. I nodded firmly, and as we parted, I couldn't help but turn around. Brother Yi, I'll wait for you to pass the exam and return. Wu Yi smiled and left. After returning to the residence, recalling Rong Zhao's various actions, I felt uneasy and anxious. He was definitely going to unleash that suppressed evil fire of his. I decided to tell my father everything. My father was also shocked by Rong Zhao's actions. He dismissed all the servants within the Jing'an study, leaving only the steward outside to guard, and had me move my chair closer to him. Today, I must tell you something crucial about the safety of the court. Ying, you must keep this strictly confidential. I nodded and leaned in to listen. There are suspicions of treason against the Duke of Rome. Officials close to him throughout the court have been secretly investigated. The list of officials I have in my possession has been reviewed repeatedly by the Emperor. Previously, our Ministry of Revenue was suspected due to our close ties with the Duke of Rome's household, but fortunately, the Emperor saw through the truth and cleared our name. I was greatly shocked upon hearing this news and whispered, "Then why was the princess married off to the Duke of Rome's estate?" Father stroked his graying beard. "We've investigated for a long time, but we still haven't been able to obtain direct evidence of the Duke of Rome's collusion with the Vala. The emperor had no other choice, fearing the world would fall into the hands of thieves. Time was pressing, so Princess Pingning had to be sacrificed to secretly search for evidence in the Duke of Rome's estate. At the same time, the princess's marriage would also confuse the Duke of Rome, making him complacent and more likely to slip up." I suddenly understood. "So that's how it is," Father continued. "These few days, you should stay in the mansion. The princess has obtained secret letters between the Duke of Rome and the Vala. The court is in turmoil, and people are uneasy. The streets are not safe either. Be sure to protect yourself." "Yes, Father, I will remember." The next day, Tsueyu rushed into my boudoir. "Miss, your golden phoenix hairpin is missing. There's only a note left in the box." I grew anxious, and the teacup in my hand slipped, shattering into pieces all over the floor. "Miss, be careful." Tsueyu carefully navigated around the shards to hand me the note. "If you want the phoenix hairpin, come alone to see me." I recognized the handwriting immediately as Rong Zhao's. With Father still at court and my anxiety mounting, I had no choice but to go to the Duke of Rome's residence alone. Upon arriving at the Duke of Rome's residence, the servants told me he had left early in his carriage. After searching for a long time without finding him, a sudden thought struck me: the Lanruo temple, where we three used to frequent as children. After a long walk, they finally arrived at the long-abandoned Temple of Orchid Tranquility. Rong Zhao waited at the entrance with an air of confidence. "Li Shuiying, I knew you would come. Where is my golden hairpin? Return it to me." Rong Zhao approached step by step. "This golden hairpin is so important to you that you'd risk your life for it." He then placed the knife against my neck. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "Rong Zhao, what exactly do you want?" Rong Zhao sneered. "I told you in our previous life you were my wife, and this life you will also be my wife." Seeing him a bit crazed, I reminded him, "Your wife is Princess Pingning." He was seething with anger, roaring loudly, "Don't ever mention that bitch to me again. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have to be fleeing in such a panicked state now, had the truth already been exposed." I had a sinking feeling that things were not looking good. "But it's all right, Yingying. Don't be afraid. I'll take you to Wera with me, so we can be together for eternity." "You're dreaming. I'm not going with you." He threw the knife in his hand away. I tried to escape, but he grabbed my neck tightly, and I could only slap with both hands. "Where do you think you're going? Once you're here, you're not leaving." His face contorted with rage, and I was too weak to resist as he lifted me by the waist and threw me into the side room of the temple. A large lock was placed on the door of the side room, as he intended to confine me within this confined space. The entire Lanruo temple was eerily quiet. Looking around, apart from the maids and servants who brought me meals every day, there wasn't a single soul in sight. On this day, Lin Xiao unexpectedly appeared at the side room. "Sister, it's been a while." I looked up and glared at her. "What are you here for?" Lin Xiao casually said. "I came to discuss your marriage to my husband." I coldly laughed. "Sister, you're truly magnanimous, helping your own husband marry another woman." Lin Xiao was hit where it hurts. Naturally displeased, in his previous life, he had no choice but to marry you first, but in this life, he married me first without hesitation. After all, the most important person in his heart is me. I looked at her in surprise. Could it be that she has also been reborn? I shook my head, coldly looking at her. "Don't be too self-important, sister. If you really mattered that much to him, would he let Princess Pingning humiliate you in public without saying a word?" Lin Xiao was momentarily stunned. "That's because he was forced by Princess Pingning's tyranny. What about marrying me? Under whose coercion? Since he has already married you, why does he come to provoke me?" Does he truly consider you the most important person?" Her body visibly trembled, and the maid quickly went over to support her. "You all go down first." The maids and servants were all dismissed by her. She slowly walked up to me, looking at me with a puzzled expression. "Sister, in your previous life, you and he lived in harmony, growing old together. Why aren't you marrying him in this life?" Yes, in the eyes of outsiders, my husband and I were a harmonious couple, treating each other with respect, but only I knew what he had done to me. Yes, why is that? My thoughts were in disarray as I recalled the events of my previous life. In his previous life, Rong Jiao, out of longing for Lin Xiao, took many concubines who resembled her in appearance or personality. His harem was filled with beauties, and he spent his days indulging in their company, growing increasingly distant from me until we were practically strangers. He fathered many children with them, but none were mine. He even left their children for me to raise, just as he neglected the affairs of the household, relying entirely on me to manage the Duke's estate. Under my management, the Duke's estate expanded into multiple industries and became a leader in each. As the estate grew stronger and gained more favor from the royal family, I watched it flourish, but the marital affection and bond between us, which should have been there, became increasingly scarce. I walked through life alone, burdened, determined not to repeat the mistakes of my past life. I guess it's because of me. In his previous life, he didn't marry me, which was his lifelong regret. But in this life, why did he marry me and still want to marry you? I don't understand. After saying this, she shook her head, then burst into laughter, tears streaming down her cheeks. In our previous life, we were in sync with each other's hearts, but fate played a cruel joke. I married Wu Yi, who treated me so coldly, yet he treated you with such tenderness. What is it about me that falls short of you? Lin Xiao became more and more agitated. They all love you, not me, I snorted coldly. Does he love me, or does he just want to possess me? I looked at her tear-streaked face and continued, just like in your previous life, you thought he loved you, and in this life, you married him. But how has he treated you? Lin Xiao glanced at me, her eyes filled with tears and despair. In the early morning, sunlight quietly crept onto my bed through the paper window, and I gently rubbed my eyes. I saw a familiar face. Awake. I was so scared that I sat up straight. How did you get in? Rong Jiao fiddled with the lock in his hand. I came in through the door, of course. We're about to set off for Wera, so I came to check on you. I will not go with you. He ignored my words and took out a wooden hairpin from his own person. Shuiying, look, this is a wooden hairpin I made myself for you. There are no goldsmiths here, so I couldn't make a gold hairpin. I made you this wooden one instead, spending quite a few days on it. Don't you think it's much prettier than the gold hairpin Wu Yi made? He stepped forward to put it on me, and after several struggles, I couldn't overpower his strength. The wooden hairpin was firmly inserted into my hair bun. Where is my golden phoenix hairpin? He leisurely took out the phoenix hairpin. Just as I reached out to grab it, he pretended to throw it, and I didn't know where the hairpin had landed. I cried because I felt wronged. Rong Jiao, what exactly do you want? That was made by Yi Gij's own hands. It's the phoenix hairpin I'm supposed to wear on my wedding day with him. You. Watching me cry in pain, his face contorted. Li Shuiying, you can only marry me in this lifetime. No one can take you away from me. I sneered coldly. Indeed, you've always treated me as an object, just like in my previous life. He felt wronged, his eyes wide, gripping my shoulders. Shuiying, I made the hairpin for you as you wished. What more do you want? I did marry Xiao, but she's just a concubine. You're still the wife. Shuiying, I told you, in your previous life you were my wife, and in this life you will also be my wife. I won't allow you to have any other thoughts. I wiped the tears from my face and looked at the arrogant man in front of me, who had suddenly become so gentle. Rong Jiao, you want everything, but in the end, you might end up with nothing. The soldiers tasked with arresting the Duke of Rome and his son stormed in, and I pulled the wooden hairpin from my hair, stabbing it into his heart. He looked at me in surprise, then gave a wicked smile. This is fine too. Dying in Ying's arms is better than dying in some wilderness. But, Ying, why did you marry someone else in this life? The blood seeping from his chest stained my sleeve red. I took one last look at him. Brother Rong Zhao. Did you truly marry me because you love me? I sneered coldly. In this life, we owe each other nothing. He took out the golden hairpin from his arms. Here, take it back. Then he closed his eyes. I held the hairpin, stood up, and walked out of the side room. The sunlight was blinding, and my eyes stung slightly. Wu Yi hurried over nervously, glancing at me and then at Rong Zhao in the side room, gently patting my shoulder. He comforted me, shooing, "Don't be afraid, it's all over." I clutched the golden hairpin tightly in my hand, bent down, and wept loudly, for Rong Zhao and for myself. Finally, everything was over. I am ready to embrace my new life, the life with Wu Yi. Wu Yi removed the cloak from his own shoulders and gently draped it over mine. On the third day after you left home, Qiyu told me about your situation. They couldn't find you anywhere and got really worried. Then I suggested we look for you at Lanruo Temple. Thankfully, heaven was on our side. And I found you. Wu Yi gave my shoulder a comforting squeeze, and it was then that I seemed to snap back to reality. What about your palace examination? The court is in turmoil recently, so the palace examination has been postponed, I replied absent-mindedly. Oh, on the way back to the city, Wu Yi distributed food to the captured rebels. Lin Xiao whispered something into Wu Yi's ear. I saw his face turn pale instantly. What did she say to you? Wu Yi gazed at me affectionately. It's nothing, she just told me to treat you well, saying you suffered too much in your previous life. Faced with this unexpected warmth, tears streamed down my face. Wu Yi gently wiped away my tears and held me in his arms. Don't worry, you didn't marry the wrong person this time. I wore the golden phoenix hairpin crafted by Wu Yi as I married into the Yongle Marquis's estate. 3 months later, Wu Yi passed the imperial examinations and entered the court as an official, and I, having contributed to the defeat of the bandits, was granted the title of Imperial Commandress. This lifetime, I walk side by side with the man I chose, together until our hair turns white. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. The prince's new concubine accused me of stealing her expensive hairpin, in front of everyone. My husband actually demanded that I undress to prove my innocence. The hairpin wasn't found, but the divorce papers I had hidden in my robe fell out. There's no better day than today. Lu Chengqi, sign it. I'll give her the position of the main wife. I asked Lu Chengqi why he agreed to marry me when he didn't love me. By then, we had been married for a year. He was stationed in Lingnan, having just defeated the enemy, though it was a Pyrrhic victory with heavy losses. He was seriously injured and lay in bed recovering. I held the medicinal soup, serving him attentively. How can I possibly accept such a gesture from the daughter of the Xie family? He turned away, ignoring me, even though his forehead was beaded with sweat from the pain, and he didn't reach out. My knees were sore from kneeling, and the medicinal soup had grown cold. I had to go and refill it, tasting it myself first before offering it to him. Please take your medicine, husband. Unable to endure any longer, he finally turned over, his gaze of disgust fixed on my face. There's no one else here, so who are you pretending for? When these words were spoken, a pang of sorrow struck my heart, but I swallowed it down, pretending not to have heard, and took another step forward to hand him the medicinal soup. The soup is still hot. Husband, be careful when you drink it. Before the words had even finished, suddenly, I felt a heavy blow on my wrist, and the steaming bowl of medicine was jolted from my hand, spilling its contents over my head. The scalding liquid trickled down my forehead and hair, soaking into my skin, spreading all the way to my neck, causing a searing pain. I stared at him in utter terror. Enough, Siejan, I've been more than patient with you. You used your Xie family's influence to sever my marriage to the one I love, and I endured it. After being forced to marry you, I even fled to Lingnan, yet you still followed me. You push and push, when will it end? Lu Chengqi was always kind to others, and he probably never spoke such harsh words to anyone in his life. When I heard this, I felt that the burn earlier was nothing. To me, physical pain was far less than the pain in my heart. I finally understood what he meant. Since our marriage, I left the capital and traveled thousands of miles with him to Lingnan. In his eyes, was I constantly pressuring him? It turned out that in his view, the marriage was something I forced upon him. He married me not out of affection, but out of compromise, forbearance, and the pain of giving up what he loved. I finally seemed to understand why he had treated me so coldly and avoided me like the plague during this past year of marriage. Taking a deep breath, I tried to maintain my composure. So it turns out that my husband married me not out of affection. Lu Chengqi remained silent for a moment. Siejan, you and I were always on separate paths. Your status was meant to be that of a crown princess. I, on the other hand, am just an unambitious imperial prince. Your favor, sweet to others, is poison to me. I was shocked. Arsenic. Could it be so malicious? Yes, you destroyed the only extravagant hope in my life. So I don't want to see you, and please, out of mercy, spare me and don't appear in front of me again. I covered my disheveled, wet head, in his look of disgust. It seemed I understood who that only extravagant hope he spoke of was, but he didn't say it outright, and I naturally wouldn't bring it up, because she was my own sister. The injury on my neck looked frightening, but it wasn't too serious. The only pity was that I had been too disheveled when I left, and if this news reached the capital, rumors of discord between me and Lu Chengqi would surely spread again. My maidservant spilled tea and used a needle to pop the blisters. Your Highness is too much. I'll return to the capital and tell the master about this. What did he say about him? I deepened my voice. Upon being questioned, Po Xiache pouted, reluctantly changing her words with great reluctance. He said that although the prince is a military general, he is considerate towards the lady. Although they are not inseparable, they still respect each other. What if your family asks about life in Lingnan? Po Xiache sniffed, reciting fluently. Although not as prosperous as the capital, it is full of flowers and trees, very suitable for living, and not lonely. It is where the lady feels at peace. She said this much, and tears were almost falling. These words were something I had repeatedly emphasized, and those around me were already well acquainted with them. Yet now, hearing them myself, I began to feel disoriented until the candlewick popped, barely bringing me back to my senses. So, the daughter of the Xie family was such a skilled liar. But if not this, was I supposed to say that Lu Chengqi, on our wedding night, left me alone in the bridal chamber and went to sleep in the barracks? Or perhaps, since our marriage, the number of times we've eaten at the same table can be counted on one hand, not to mention the current political instability, a time of turmoil. And how could a daughter who has married far away possibly add to the worries of her aging parents? Lu Chengqi has won a great victory and will soon return to the capital to report on his duties before the new year. So naturally, he must discipline his subordinates and avoid unnecessary trouble. But this matter might still be difficult to keep entirely hidden. Half a month later, the emperor sent military rewards to Lu Chengqi, but also bestowed an extra box of ointment for burns and scalds. Both Lu Chengqi and I were stunned when we heard the decree. He was already injured, and upon hearing this, his complexion worsened, awkwardly accepting the decree and expressing his gratitude. That night, he again did not take his medicine, becoming irritable. Naturally, he was not good with words, and the eunuch who delivered the decree was left in the dark, Thinking he had somehow displeased the prince, I presented my father-in-law with 2 exquisite tea cakes, replaced their horses with fine steeds from Lingnan, and explained that these were all from Lu Chengqi's intentions. He had wanted to come in person to express his gratitude, but unfortunately, he was injured and had to entrust me with the task. I then summoned a physician, dissected the ingredients of the ointment bestowed by the emperor, and worked through the night to produce 2 more boxes. These were sent to the military camp along with the emperor's rewards, to be distributed among the armory craftsmen who often suffered burns while forging weapons. Soon, rumors spread that the 6th prince was injured in the battle in Lingnan, yet in his report to the emperor, he still remembered the soldiers. The emperor, in his compassion for the troops, had sent ointments from the capital, to be distributed along with the rewards. Though the ointments were not valuable, they carried the emperor's and the prince's concern, truly warming the hearts of those who endured the bitter cold defending the nation. The story of the royal son personally leading the charge, setting an example for the family and the country, with the emperor's distant but still benevolent grace blessing the soldiers, became a tale of praise. Since Lu Chengqi has made his intentions clear, I won't embarrass myself by appearing in front of him. Lingnan, located at the border, is complex in various situations. Although it has fewer social obligations than the capital, there are many real tasks to handle. We each focus on our own work, living in the same residence, yet we haven't met for 2 months. Next, it's time to return to the capital for a report. The first thing upon arriving in the capital is to send my sister Xie Yu off to her wedding. She is to marry the Prince Qi as a concubine. Lu Chengqi didn't accompany me to the Xie family's wedding. I found an excuse to brush off my parents and slipped into my sister's boudoir. She sat in front of the mirror, admiring her peach blossom-like face. Sister, look at me. Am I beautiful? Although she was a concubine's daughter, she was very close to me. Seeing me come in, she grabbed my hand and spun around happily, her red wedding dress almost spinning into a flower. Beautiful. I smiled and tapped her nose. Stop spinning, or you might get dizzy and embarrass yourself. I gathered her hair, but my sharp eyes caught a woven gold swallowtail tassel hairpin at her temple, and my heart skipped a beat. I haven't thanked my elder sister yet. Such a beautiful hairpin, and my elder sister gave it to me as an adornment. My elder sister really loves me. Do I look good wearing this? I did indeed send an adornment to Xie Yu yesterday, but there was no such hairpin. More importantly, this hairpin was left by Lu Chengqi's mother for his wife. My heart skipped a beat as I caught a glimpse of my pale face in the mirror and said, "It's beautiful, it suits you." That night, I waited at the mansion gate for a long time, but Lu Chengqi never returned home. I don't know if it was because I was gripping too hard or because of the cold weather, but my fingers holding the swallow-tailed hairpin had turned white from the strain. This hairpin belonged to Lu Chengqi's mother. Anyone with eyes could tell. My sister, being sensible, only thought that I was overly fond of her to have given her such a precious heirloom left by my mother-in-law. She immediately took it off and returned it to me, saying the gift was too valuable. Yes, it was indeed heavy. How could the hidden love of a young person, suppressed yet still passionate, not be heavy? This affection, and even this hairpin, resemble the young general who always tied his high ponytail and carried a long spear. The arc of his eyes when he smiled was like a swallow's tail, cold and unrestrained. Just like the Lu Chengqi I first met. As a child, I always envied my younger sister. I was born into the main branch of the family, who groomed me to be the future crown princess. I was constantly under strict supervision, never allowed to make the slightest mistake in my actions. My younger sister, however, was different. She could chase butterflies and catch crickets in the courtyard, her laughter echoing throughout the entire yard. She would often share the small pastries she stole from the kitchen with me. My health was also poor. While my sister could learn to wield spears and swords, I could only stay indoors. tending to flowers and plants, playing the cheen, and playing chess. When I was 13, the capital city held a lantern festival. My sister, avoiding the servants, secretly took me out of the house. The streets were bustling with people, and my sister and I quickly got separated. I dared not run around, fearing I might encounter troublemakers. After a long while, I finally found a more open spot, clutching a jade rabbit lantern as I looked around for my sister. "Have you lost your family?" At that moment, Lu Chengqi galloped across the bridge on horseback, and seeing me alone, he stopped to ask me. I was scared and didn't dare to talk to strangers casually. I stood there pretending to be calm, keeping a wary eye on him. "Looks like you're lost," he chuckled helplessly, asking where I lived and who I came out with. "I've heard many stories of girls being abducted during the Lantern Festival, and I was terrified at the moment." Snapping, "None of your business, TSK. He gave me a rather exasperated look, then dismounted, plucked a piece of wild grass to chew on, and sat down a few feet away from me, holding his long spear. He maintained a safe distance until late into the night, until my father found me. Father said, "That is the current 6th prince, Lu Chengqi, who has just returned victorious from battle." He could tell from my appearance that I was lost, seeing that I didn't speak to him. He sent someone to inquire with the authorities to find me. Worried that I might really be abducted, he stood guard beside me with his spear. Never did I expect that the person who had guarded me all night would be the young hero from the storybooks. In a moment of surprise, I slipped, and the lantern in my hand slipped away. With a flick of his spear, the young man hooked the lantern just before it fell into the water and returned it to me. Beneath the moon, his tall and straight figure exuded an unrestrained and free-spirited demeanor, resembling a dashing martial artist from the pugilistic world. The corners of his eyes crinkled like a swallow's tail when he smiled. "Hold it steady now." That day, I carried the lantern home, as if holding the moon itself. I am introverted, and compared to my radiant sister who shines like the sun, I prefer the dim and uninteresting moon. And Lu Chengqi is the moon I have long gazed upon in my equally dull and uneventful life. Later, when it was time to discuss marriage arrangements, the emperor's intention was for me to marry the crown prince and for my sister to marry Lu Chengqi. Just when I thought this friendship would end here, my sister had already fallen in love with the Prince of Qi. To save face for the royal family and to respect my sister's feelings, my father had no choice but to settle for less, marrying me, the legitimate daughter, to the illegitimate Lu Chengqi as an act of atonement to the emperor. At the time, my sister said she was sorry for me for dragging me into having to go to the desolate land of Lingnan. I didn't mind, because where the heart finds peace is my home. Unfortunately, even the moon would be drawn to the bright sunlight. It wasn't until later that I realized Lu Chengqi had originally sought to marry my sister. However, the emperor did not wish to abandon the alliance with the Xie family, which forced him to marry me instead. A sharp pain in my palm brought me back to reality. The swallowtail hairpin had already pierced my finger, hoofbeats echoed from the street, and a shadow loomed over me. It was Lu Chengqi returning. He reeked of alcohol, slightly staggering as he took the swallowtail hairpin from my hand, examining it closely for a long time. The cold moonlight cast a frosty hue over his features, and his eyes and brows seemed frozen with frost. I had intended to explain the reason, but he suddenly turned around, his fingertip gently brushing against my cheek, sending shivers down my spine. His eyes were already drunk as he inserted the hairpin into my hair. "Beautiful, suits you." He moved closer, his breath brushing against my face, and I stiffened like a puppet, yet still remembered to remove the hairpin that wasn't mine. Lu Chengqi pressed his palm over mine, ensuring the hairpin was securely reinserted. His face drew near again, and with the scent of wine, his kiss descended in the cold wind. He was completely cold. His fingers, his cheeks, including this kiss, and even his words, This hairpin suits my beloved wife, and you resemble her, resemble. Before I could react, Lu Chengqi suddenly picked me up, laughing maniacally to the sky, and strode into the house. Lu Chengqi pulled back the blanket, pressed down on me, and pinched my chin. He gazed at me with a drunken, hazy look for a long time, and finally, his smile gradually froze. He had never looked at me like this before, even during our past interactions, for my face. He would always glance away quickly, doing his best to avoid meeting my gaze. At this moment, a sudden realization struck me why he had never looked closely at my face, because I resembled my sister. A surge of inexplicable humiliation welled up within me, and I immediately turned my face away. His gaze immediately fell upon my neck, still marked with scars. This action seemed to enrage him. He leaned down to tear at my clothes. Aren't you a virtuous wife? What's wrong with satisfying your husband's desires? Xiezhen, no, are you? Tonight you are marrying me, aren't you? Xiezhen, tonight, just be a you for once. Wear this hairpin, and you'll be my beloved wife. He was halfway through his drunken ramblings. I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. This slap, almost using up the greatest strength of my life, even knocked Lu Chengqi's face sideways, leaving a clear red imprint of 5 fingers on his cheek. He slowly turned his head back, his face stiff as he looked at me. Xiezhen, you got it now. I cut him off, then spoke in a tone I had never used before, sternly saying, then get out of the way. Lu Chengqi's eyes were vacant, as if savoring that slap. I couldn't move, only turning my face away, and an eerie silence filled the room. The moonlight filtered through the window, falling on my face and his body. Xiezhen, are you crazy? Lu Chengqi roared through gritted teeth, raising his hand to point at the door. Get out. Kneel, and clear your head. The flagstone ground in winter was very damp, and the pervasive cold seeped into my knees. I clenched my palms tightly, repeatedly reminding myself that I could not admit fault, nor could I beg for mercy, because on this matter, I truly could not back down. Suddenly, the snow above my head stopped. It was Lu Chengqi who emerged, holding an umbrella that shielded me from the heavy snowfall. His cold, handsome face, veiled by the snowy backdrop, appeared somewhat indistinct. Get up, there's no need to kneel. I grit my teeth to endure the piercing pain in my knees, shuffle forward 2 steps on my knees, and grab the hem of his robe. I deserve to kneel for injuring your highness, but there is one thing I beg you to promise me. Lu Chengqi lowers his head and gives me a fleeting glance. What is it? You may speak first. Your Highness, could you please stop approaching my younger sister? Your feelings for her were merely one-sided, and now that she is married, please do not disturb her life. Lu Chengqi's brows were already furrowed, and the anger that had dissipated was gradually building up in his eyes again. Just to satisfy your own desires, you want this king to abandon the one he loves, Your Highness. I raised my head, perhaps pleading, perhaps questioning. Amidst the snowstorm, my sister was already marrying as a concubine. It's not easy for a woman to be a secondary wife. If others see the concubine of the Prince of Qi wearing the hairpin you gave her, what will they think of your relationship? Your Highness commands an army and may not fear such things. But my sister is just a woman. How will she be able to live with herself in the future? He remained silent. Snow and cold wind intertwined, and our eyes met. Lu Chengqi, I am the elder sister. I cannot stand by and watch my sister fall into such a situation. His originally firm and cold expression began to soften after hearing these words. You're right, he said, seemingly unfazed by the cold, impatiently waving me off. Go back, don't kneel anymore, let me think alone. I shook the snow off my body, picked up the umbrella he had discarded, and placed it beside him. A loud bang echoed. The courtyard gate was forcefully pushed open. Yu's figure stumbled and ran towards me, collapsing at my feet. Sister, I hurried over. What's going on here? Sister, I beg you, don't force me to marry the Prince of Qi. A Yu tugged at my clothes, crying. I was stunned. Sister, you know, I love the sixth prince. Don't worry, I won't compete with you. Even if I have to be your servant, I just beg you to let me stay by the prince's side. Looking at my younger sister, who grew up with me, I realized, how come I don't seem to recognize her anymore? I opened my mouth, but it felt as if someone had stuffed a ball of snow inside. Rendering me unable to make a sound, Lu Chengqi flew into a rage and slapped me across the face with full force. A burning pain slowly spread across my face and forehead, and blood mixed with mud trickled down. The daughter of the Xie family was covered in dust, her hair matted with muddy water. I tried to stand up, but my legs were completely devoid of strength. Then I suddenly realized something. A person's body grows cold in the snowstorm, their heart grows cold in betrayal. But when both body and heart are thoroughly chilled, it's strange to say, no longer cold. On the night of the Prince of Chi's wedding to a concubine, he was found guilty of embezzlement and the emperor exiled him to the frontier. Xie Yu said that back then, relying on being the legitimate daughter, I deliberately switched her marriage arrangement and forced her to marry the Prince of Chi as a concubine. Within 2 days, Lu Chengqi was ready to take her as his concubine. The mansion was adorned with lanterns and festive decorations. Lu Chengqi brought her along to pay their respects to me. Xie Yu lowered her head and handed me a cup of tea. Sister, I don't actually care about any status. I only care about my friendship with the crown prince. Could you please return that swallowtail hairpin to me? She claimed she didn't care about status. But everyone knows that hairpin is passed down to the wife of Lu Chengqi. Sister, you clearly stole it that day. Her voice trembled slightly, as if she had endured great injustice. But it was I who suffered all the grievances for that hairpin. On the day I married Lu Chengqi, I was full of joy, waiting for him to personally place that hairpin on me. But he left me behind and went to sleep in the barracks. The only time I ever wore it, my husband said, "You really resemble my beloved wife." Resemble? How laughable. I don't have anything like that which harms people. I turned around and was about to leave. Sister, give it back to me, she cooed at Lu Chengqi. Husband, ask sister to return it to me. She must have hidden it on her body. If I don't have it, I stared at Xie Yu. Are you willing to bear the guilt of slandering your elder sister? With one hand, I pulled off the fur collar, then the outer robe, followed by the belt, the middle garment, one by one falling to the ground. Don't talk about swallowtail hairpins, not even a single swallow feather exists. I was about to charge Xie Yu with the crime of slandering his elder sister. Lu Chengqi suddenly grabbed me forcefully. Xiezhen, what is this? He suddenly turned ashen and threw a piece of paper at me. I picked it up and realized it was the divorce agreement I had tucked in my robe. There's no better day than today, Lu Chengqi. Sign it. I'll give her the position of the main wife. He staggered back, almost unable to believe his eyes, the veins on his forehead throbbing for a long time. He seemed about to curse, but in the end, he bit his tongue and swallowed whatever words he had been about to say. He said, Xiezhen, if you're unhappy about me taking concubines, just say so. There's no need to throw this kind of tantrum. You are not allowed to write such things again. His tone was harsh. But in the end, he didn't agree. I raised my head, my gaze lingering on the corners of his eyes and brows. Yet, I sensed a hint of reluctance to let go. The person Lu Chengqi likes is indeed not me. But from being an unloved prince of a concubine to reaching where he is today, being valued by the emperor and praised by the entire court, the one who has been by his side is me. It was me who endured hardships with him in Lingnan, and it was me who tended to his wounds and administered his medicine. Could it be? Did something leave a mark in his heart? Xie Yu panicked immediately and quickly supported Lu Chengqi's arm. Husband, forget it, forget it. It's already wonderful to be by your side. I don't need any status. Of course we want it. How can we not? I looked at Xie Yu and said loudly, you've always liked the things your older sister had the most, haven't you? Anyway, I find them cumbersome. Giving them to a beggar is no different from giving them to you. Lu Chengqi was slightly taken aback, tearing the divorce papers into tiny pieces. I scattered them all over the ground. Don't even think about pulling that on me. Divorce. Not a chance. With heavy snow falling, I knelt before the palace, pleading with the emperor to grant me a divorce. I was nearly frozen into a snowman. Someone held an umbrella for me. It was Lu Chengqi, with his usual long eyebrows and deep eyes, strikingly handsome, but his face was quite unreadable. I glanced at him and then looked straight ahead. Your Highness, I don't need you to hold the umbrella. Lu Chengqi's grip on the umbrella handle tightened, his knuckles standing out clearly. Unwavering, I remembered many years ago when that same hand held a gun, picking out for me a lantern as bright as the moon. But then, I remembered that night again, but it was this very hand that had struck me so decisively. A chill ran through me, and I moved a few steps to the side. Facing the snow and ice once more with composure, such actions made Lu Chengqi feel somewhat embarrassed. Around the palace gates, eunuchs and palace maids were peeking out. Lu Chengqi stood still for a moment, then crouched down and whispered to me, "I'll take a step back. I'll send you away. Let's go home, okay?" In the past, what I couldn't bear to see was him frowning, feeling troubled. But now, I prefer not to make myself feel troubled. No, His Majesty finally summoned me. And Lu Chengqi followed me all the way into the palace. It seems His Majesty only agreed to see me after Lu Chengqi arrived. First, he had someone bring me hot water and a cloak. Then, in front of me, he severely reprimanded Lu Chengqi, accusing him of being ungrateful and bewitched. Then, in a rather gentle tone, he said, "Lady Xie, the sixth prince was indeed in the wrong. I have already disciplined him. You two are a couple who have weathered hardships together. There must be some affection between you. Divorce is something that benefits men. He will be free and happy, while women often become the subject of ridicule. Moreover, without a husband, you would have to rely on your family. You are a filial daughter, so you certainly wouldn't want to cause more trouble for your parents, would you? The emperor is telling me that the cost of divorce is too great for me to bear, but I am willing, Your Majesty, if a person has a wound. Simply covering it will only lead to the festering of the flesh and the spreading of corruption. I sincerely bow down," I said earnestly. "It is better to cut away the rotten flesh, even if it is painful. Clearing out the decay will eventually lead to healing." The emperor spoke gravely. "As you say, you are willing to endure the pain of cutting away the rotten flesh, no matter the cost, whatever the cost." When I finished saying this, I saw Lu Chengqi standing like a statue, his entire being condensed into a dark shadow. When I moved out of the mansion, I only packed my own things. As for the items from our marriage that were connected to Lu Chengqi, I had no intention of taking them with me. Lu Chengqi sneered. "Xiezhen, I truly underestimated you before, since you care about nothing." He turned around and said to Xie Yu, "If she doesn't want it, then all of this will be yours in the future. You can have anything you want." But Xie Yu's expression wasn't as pleasant, because she could tell that Lu Chengqi was only saying such things to spite me. Yet, to make me uncomfortable, she still sweetly thanked Lu Chengqi. Finally, she raised her finger and pointed to an old lantern. "Your Highness, I want that one. This is mine." I shielded the lantern. "Aren't you indifferent to everything? What does it matter if you give it to her?" Lu Chengqi said sarcastically, looking at me calmly. He clearly knew how much I cherished this lantern, having carried it with me all these years. Xie Yu also knew, so she deliberately said that, "I really don't want to take these things with me to disgust myself, but I also don't want to leave them behind to benefit others." I instructed Pot Tea, "Go get a bucket of oil and burn it all, burn it clean." I walked out of the courtyard filled with blue smoke. I heard Xie Yu screaming, "Your Highness, it's already burned away, don't pick it up. Be careful of the heat." My parents said that even if I got divorced, it didn't matter, they would support me for life. But I refused. I felt that I could do something on my own. I didn't need to be rich and famous. I was content with earning my own living through my own hands. I had been well liked among the noble ladies in the capital, and when they heard I wanted to make money on my own, they all came up with ideas. They said my embroidery was excellent, and I should become a seamstress. They would all buy my embroidered garments for their dresses. They also said I was skilled in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, and I should become a tutor for their daughters, offering me a generous salary. It's not impossible, but it doesn't seem to be what I want. In the past, I used to socialize on behalf of Lu Chengqi, accumulating a lot of connections, including the son of He Qing. He is the junior brother of our country's national teacher. Said to be knowledgeable about astronomy and geography, though he is elusive and usually travels abroad. Whenever he returns to the capital, he becomes a guest of honor at the emperor's court, so when he came to visit my courtyard, I was shocked. What merit did I have to deserve such a distinguished guest? Dressed in pure white, he exuded an ethereal charm. With a green jade flute hanging at his waist and a small wine pouch, he suggested to me, "Miss Xie," while in the boudoir, "You managed the Xie household, and after marriage, you managed the Wang estate, instead of managing for others. Why not?" He trailed off mid-sentence. Hearing this, I sensed an opportunity and invited him in for tea. "In your esteemed opinion, what should I do?" He Qing Gongzi didn't enter the house, leaving only one sentence: "Go your own way, go my own way." I was stunned, unconsciously pursing my lips, thinking, how exactly do I go about doing that? He Qing Gongzi is all about action, not follow-through. He just dropped that line and left. After a whole night of contemplation, I made a decision. Working for others, no matter what, is living under someone else's thumb, holding someone else's bowl. It's better to start a business of my own. So I took some of my savings and bought a large restaurant on West Street. I personally oversaw everything from the restaurant's renovation to the kitchen's dishes and the front-of-house service. At first, I thought it would be difficult. But after getting started, I found that it wasn't much different from my previous role as a steward. Soon, the restaurant opened its doors. Leveraging my previous connections, many came to support the opening, and with my full dedication, business quickly boomed, with daily revenue reaching hundreds of taels of silver, and Mr. He Qing became a regular at my restaurant. He often hosted guests at my restaurant. And it wasn't until later that I realized his guests were all prominent figures in the business world, and most of the shops in the capital worked under his business banner. No wonder he, as the younger brother of the national teacher, doesn't work for the court. He simply doesn't care for the meager salary. Then people say that the young master knows astronomy and geography. I fiddled with the abacus and asked him, "That's just flattery from others. In business and dealing with people, one naturally learns more." He flipped through the scroll in his hand, speaking humbly. "They also say the young master is as elusive as a dragon, only showing his head but never his tail. Making money can't be idle, running around everywhere. It's only because others give face that they say such things." He had a lot of insights about doing business, and talking with him always proved to be very rewarding. "Thank you, Miss Xie." He Qing stepped in, his face always wearing a warm, welcoming smile, a pot of autumn dew white, and a few side dishes. He said this leaning against the counter. "As a divorced woman, maintaining my reputation is quite challenging. Therefore, when he came to see me that day, he did not enter the house. Later, when we opened the shop, in front of many people, he spoke to me, always keeping a counter between us, never overstepping. Young master." I poured him a cup of wine. "May I ask you a question?" "Please go ahead," he replied, slightly bending his back to lower himself to my height. "Young master, is there something you need my help with?" Even though he handled things with such precision, I could still sense that his care for me was unusually abundant. I'm not the type to take others' kindness for granted. Since he has helped me, I naturally would be willing to lend a hand in anything within my power. After speaking, he simply lowered his eyes and smiled softly. If the young master does not wish to speak, I will not press for answers. However, the kindness and righteousness of the young master, Siezhen, will always remember and will surely repay with all his might in the future. He shifted his gaze, focusing on the bustling street filled with traffic. After a long while, his demeanor, gentle yet exuding a hint of dominance, as if swept away by the dust of carriages and horses, only leaving behind a soft whisper, "I can be remembered by you now." Lu Chengqi came to see me. Since the divorce, he had never shown his face. On this day, as I had just closed the shop, my carriage passed the street corner and saw a shadowy figure standing there. It was Lu Chengqi. It seemed he had been waiting for quite some time. In just a few short months, he had lost a significant amount of weight. His once spirited eyebrows and eyes now looked drained, and a haggard stubble circled his chin. I knew he had come to the Xie residence to look for me a few times. But I wasn't there. After opening the restaurant, he came by as well, but only ever glanced from the doorway in a hurry. This time,
artist, they didn't harm his bones or muscles. You don't need to worry too much about him. Who's worried about him? Then why have you been looking so unwell? I took a deep breath. He's tough and thick-skinned. So getting stabbed is his own fault. I'm worried about you. After all, he's a prince. What will you do now that you've laid hands on him? You don't need to worry about that. I have my own ways, he said with a light laugh. I handed him a handkerchief soaked with medicinal powder. He paused for a moment, then took it and held it in his palm for a while. But since he came to find you today and you didn't go back with him, did you deliberately say something to provoke him? I tilted my head. From what you're saying, you want me to go back with him? Of course not, He Ching replied reflexively. I never want to see you leave with another man again. His words sounded ambiguous, and as I looked at him, his ears turned red as if ignited by some fire. He seemed to realize his words were too blunt and quickly tried to clarify. Of course, this is just my own wishful thinking. No, that's not it. What am I saying? I didn't mean it that way. Forget it, then. The usually eloquent and charming He Ching, who could engage in conversation with anyone and respond to any topic, found himself at a loss for words. He simply closed his mouth, his ears turning red like a drop of ink spreading into his skin, which then extended down to his neck, causing his entire face to flush a vulnerable shade of crimson. Oh, I drawled, deliberately focusing on his increasingly red face and said, so it seems the words you spoke today, declaring your affection for me, were just to provoke him. What a pity. I thought I had stumbled upon a good match. He looked up as if waking from a dream. Under my unwavering gaze, he turned his head away. With a look of determination, he bared his heart and soul. In truth, deep down, I wanted to kill him. I was just so jealous of him. How is it that he was so fortunate to earn your affection? How is it that he was so fortunate to marry you? Why is it that what I yearned for, he could so easily attain? And even if he had, as long as he treated you well and made you happy, I would have accepted it. But why did he treat you like that? I truly hate him to death. He asked again, with your intelligence, did you already know that I like you? I took a deep breath. How could I not see it? Despite his efforts to keep his distance, every time I raised my head while working the abacus at the counter, I could feel his gaze on me. So gentle. I have also looked at others that way. How could I not know what that means? I just don't understand why it had to be me. Unrequited love, I guess, he said with a hint of self-mockery. Love knows no reason. You ask me why, but where is there any reason? I've seen you as my frost and snow for far too many years. I was overwhelmed by this emotion. Then I told him, please give me some time. I do have a good impression of He Ching, but I dare not make a hasty decision. I don't want to encounter an unhappy marriage. Nor do I want to treat his deep affection so casually. The incident where He Ching beat Lu Chengqi, he somehow managed to prevent Lu Chengqi from causing him any trouble. Since he bared his heart, he has become more brazen, sending things to the Xie family every few days. And this man keeps changing his methods, sometimes making it impossible to refuse. When I'm calculating accounts at the tavern, He even takes up half the counter to read. The problem is, I can't really say anything to him. Because during busy times at the shop, he considers himself half a waiter, greeting and seeing off guests on my behalf. What exactly do you want to do? Pursue you? He Ching casually flipped through his book and calmly declared, I want Miss Xie to thoroughly experience the feeling of being pursued. Of course, you can reject me, but I will continue to pursue you. When I was making a fortune in business, the palace had already begun the struggle for succession. In fact, ever since Lu Chengqi returned to the capital, a storm was inevitable between him and the crown prince, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. The crown prince was about to rebel. Lu Chengqi led his troops into the palace in a fierce battle, but what I was truly worried about wasn't that. My father was also in the palace. He had always been rigid and conservative. When the crown prince staged a coup, my father would undoubtedly be the first to step forward and condemn it. I panicked. He Ching soothed me, telling me not to worry and that he would find a way to handle the situation. Then he left alone. That night, the Longxiang guards who had been stranded on the outskirts of the capital suddenly broke through the Zhuqiu gate and charged into the palace. Father was soon brought back. But it was Lu Chengqi who brought him home. He took an arrow in the back while trying to save my father, yet he held on, delivering my father to our doorstep before collapsing, just before he fell. He grabbed my hand and said, Arjun, I've brought your father-in-law back safely. Stop pretending. I know you're awake, I said to Lu Chengqi, who was lying on the hospital bed. Arjun, I have something I want to tell you. He opened his eyes, slightly weak. I pulled my hand back. Let go of me first, then we'll talk. He shook his head, gripping tighter, and helped himself up with his injury. Just for the sake of me saving your father, don't be angry with me anymore, okay? I looked at him. Lu Chengqi, I'm grateful that you saved my father, but this has nothing to do with our marriage, I said, turning to leave. I was wrong. His voice followed me. I understand how you felt before. I know what it's like to love someone you can't have. I know how much of a scoundrel I was before. Arjun, let's get back together. Okay, I will make it up to you properly. I know the hardships of Lingnan, and I won't let you wander with me anymore. I will strive, and in the future, I will become the emperor. You will be the most noble woman in the world. You know, you were born to be an empress. Seeing his pale face, his wounds not yet healed, tears streaking his face. The arrowhead taken from his shoulder sank to the bottom of the basin, the tainted blood staining the water red. I slowly pulled my hand out of his grasp. I told him in the gentlest voice possible, it's too late. His hand tightly clutched at the hem of my skirt, looking up, unbelievingly staring at me, shaking his head constantly. Once upon a time, I almost felt that Lu Chengqi was born to make me like him. I spent a year with him in Lingnan, witnessed his tears of sorrow for the fallen soldiers, and also saw his spiritedness in the heat of battle. But I have never seen him so defeated, so desolate, as he is now. Half a month later, the crown prince of the Eastern Palace was deposed, and the emperor abdicated to become the Grand Emperor. The sixth prince, Lu Chengqi, ascended the throne. At the critical moment, the national teacher's disciple, the crane Qing Gongzi, persuaded the national teacher to mobilize the Longxiang guards from the outskirts of the city, personally leading the troops to break through the Zhuqiu gate and storm into the palace to rescue the civil and military officials. I finally understood what allowed him to remain unharmed after beating up a prince. The city garrison is the most effective weapon for crushing rebels, if either the crown prince or Lu Chengqi were to rebel. The dragon-embroidered guard's allegiance would determine who half sits on the throne. The day Lu Chengqi ascended the throne, He Qing and I were already preparing to leave the capital for Jiangnan. My restaurant was running smoothly and could be managed by others. He Qing said the scenery in Jiangnan was beautiful, and if I wanted to travel and enjoy the sights, it would be a good first stop. He also said, naturally, as your suitor, when you go sightseeing, I must serve you diligently to improve your impression of me. Just as I was about to mount the horse, Lu Chengqi chased after me. He had just ascended the throne halfway when he, along with the civil and military officials, caught up, bringing the imperial edict for the empress. Arjun, be my empress. I held He Qing's hand and mounted the horse. He called out to me from behind. Arjun, I raised the whip. Someone called from behind. Your Majesty's sacred body is worth 10,000 pieces of gold. How can you kneel to others? Outside the capital, in front of the civil and military officials and the passing common folk, the newly enthroned emperor knelt down, his bright yellow dragon robe covered in dust, and the wind outside the city slapped his face like a slap. He exhausted his voice, casting away his last shred of dignity. Arjun, I didn't look back, walking away triumphantly. The howling wind gradually drowned out the shouts from behind. The taste of freedom is truly sweet. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you like this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.